The car showed up at the far pump every night at exactly 2014, engine off, and it took me 3 weeks to work up the nerve to walk out there and find out who was sitting in it. I ran the graveyard shift at a gas station on a state highway, the kind of place with 2 pumps that work and one that doesn't, 40 miles from anything you'd call a town. I took the job because I was broke and because I liked the quiet. That is the truth. I was 22 and I had dropped out of one thing and been fired from another. And the idea of sitting alone in a lit box all night with nobody to disappoint sounded like a vacation. The pay was bad. The coffee was worse. For the first month, it was the best job I ever had. The car started coming in my second week. A dark sedan, older, the kind that used to be nice. It would roll into the lot with its headlights already off, which is the first thing that should have bothered me, and it would stop at the far pump, the broken one, and it would sit there. No one got out. No one pumped gas because that pump didn't work and everyone local knew it. The engine never ran. At 2014 it was there, and somewhere around 2:45 it was gone, and I never once saw it arrive or leave. I'd look up and it was there. I'd look up again and it wasn't. I told myself it was somebody sleeping. People do that on long drives, pull into a lot and close their eyes for 20 minutes. But people who sleep in their cars park under the lights, near the building, where it's safe. This car chose the farthest, darkest corner of the lot every single night at the same minute, and it faced the store. It faced me. I started to feel it before I understood it, that sense of being looked at through glass by something patient. There was a regular who came in around the same time, an older man in a canvas coat who bought black coffee and a single roll of mints and never anything else. He was the only other person I saw most nights, and we got into that easy nodding friendliness that lonely hours people fall into. One night I mentioned the car to him, half laughing, and he did not laugh. He set his coffee down on the counter and he looked at me for a long moment, and he asked me how long it had been coming. I told him about 3 weeks. He nodded slowly, like that meant something, and he told me a thing I have never been able to unhear. He said the last kid who worked this shift had mentioned the same car to him, and the kid before that. I asked him what happened to them. He picked his coffee back up and he said, real quiet, that they stopped being on shift and that nobody local had seen either one of them since, and that the station just posted a new HE Help Wanted sign in the window each time, and life went on the way it does out here where people come and go and no one keeps count. Then he paid for his mints and he told me, on his way out, not to go out to the car. Not for any reason. He said if it wanted to come inside, it would have to come inside on its own, through the door, like anyone else. And that as long as I stayed behind the counter and made it do that, I'd probably be alright. Probably. That word sat in my chest for weeks. There was a night after that conversation when the car did something new. It was there at 2014 like always, and I was behind the counter trying not to look at it, and the store's outside speaker crackled. We had one, an old intercom the owner used to talk to people at the pumps back when the place had more than one person working it. It hadn't been switched on in years. I wasn't even sure it worked. It crackled, and then it made a sound, low and even, and it took me a long few seconds to understand that the sound was a man clearing his throat. The polite little sound a person makes before they speak, and then nothing. It waited, like it wanted me to key the intercom and answer, to open a channel between the counter and the dark, and I did not touch it, and after a while, the speaker went dead again. And the car sat there in the corner being patient with me. I unplugged the intercom the next day and threw the cord in the dumpster. I don't know if that did anything. It made me feel better for about an hour. I did stay behind the counter, for a while. But you have to understand what a lonely shift does to your head, how a small strange thing becomes the only thing, how it fills up all that empty time until you can think about nothing else. Every night, the car. Every night, 2014. I stopped reading, stopped watching videos on my phone, just sat and watched that dark shape in the corner of the lot and felt it watching back, and the not knowing got heavier than any fear of knowing could ever be. And on a Tuesday in October, at about 20:30 in the morning, I did the stupidest thing I've ever done. I walked out from behind the counter, and I pushed open the door, and I crossed the lot to the car. The closer I got, the wronger it felt. The air around it was cold, colder than the October night, a wall of cold I stepped into about 10 feet out. And when I reached the driver's window and looked in, there was no one there. The car was empty. Empty and clean and old, the seats cracked, a rosary hanging from the mirror, and on the passenger seat a canvas coat folded neatly. Exactly like the one the old man wore. I put my hand on the hood without thinking. It was warm, not engine warm. Warm like a body had been sitting against it. I heard the bell over the store door ring behind me. I turned around, and the lights at the station were 100 feet away across the dark lot, and standing in the doorway of my store, holding the door open, was a shape. A man shape, backlit, tall, wearing what looked like a canvas coat, and it was inside my store, behind my counter, where I was supposed to be safe, and it was holding the door open for me the way you hold a door for someone you are waiting on. And it did not move. It just held the door and waited, and I understood that it had let me lure myself out, that the whole point of the car was to get me to leave the one place the old man told me to stay. I did not go back inside. I want to be clear about that because it is the only reason I am here. I left my phone, my jacket, my car keys, everything, and I ran the other way, out to the black highway. And I flagged down a semi with my arms over my head like a crazy person, and I climbed up into the cab of the stranger's truck, and I cried, and I did not look back at the station. The trucker didn't ask much. I think out there, on those roads, at that hour, men have learned not to ask. I never went back for my things. I called the owner the next day from a bus station 200 miles away, and I quit without notice, and he was quiet on the phone, and then he said in a tired voice that he'd put the sign back up. Just like the old man said, put the sign back up. Here's the part I have gone over 1,000 times. The old man with the coffee and the mints, the one who warned me. I described him to the owner. And the owner was quiet again, longer this time, and then he told me that no old man in a canvas coat had come into that station in years, that the only regular on the graveyard shift, going back a long way, was a man who used to work it himself, a man who parked in the far corner, a man they never found. So I don't know who was warning me and who was waiting for me. I don't know if the coat in the car and the coat in the doorway and the coat on the man who bought mints were three things or one thing, wearing itself thin across the hours of the night. I only know that it followed the rules. It made me come to it. It never once stepped out into the lot after me. And somewhere out on that highway right now at 2140 in the morning, there is a new kid behind that counter, and a dark car in the corner of the lot, and a nice old man who is about to buy a coffee and give him some very good advice. They finally closed the Vandermeer Hotel last month, and I was the only person on staff who was not surprised, because I had spent 15 years working its night audit alone. And I had known for most of that time that something was staying in a room we did not rent. I should explain what a night auditor does, because most people have never heard the term. From 11 at night until 7 in the morning, I was the hotel, the only one. I ran the day's final numbers, I balanced the accounts, I checked in the rare late arrival, and I sat behind the front desk of a grand old building while 300 sleeping strangers trusted me to keep the night in order. I was good at it. I am a precise woman, I always have been, and the work suited me, quiet, exact, a place for every figure and every figure in its place. I tell you this so you understand that I am not the sort of person who imagines things. I balance to the penny. When the night stopped balancing, I noticed. It began with room 814. Our booking system showed it occupied. It had shown it occupied for as long as I had worked there. A permanent guest with no name attached, no folio, no charges, no checkout date. When I first started, I asked the day manager about it, and she waved her hand and said it was a glitch in the old software, that 814 had been flagged out of service years ago, and the system had simply never let go of it, and that I should leave it be. And I did leave it be, for a long time. A precise woman also knows which questions the people above her do not want asked. But you cannot sit alone in a building for 15 years and not learn its habits, and 814 had habits. The phone on my desk had a panel of little lights, one for each room, and they would glow when a guest picked up their receiver to dial the desk or place a call. Most nights that panel was dark, but 2 or 3 times a week, always between 3 and 4 in the morning, the light for 814 would come on. Someone in that empty, out-of-service room on the 8th floor was lifting the telephone. And a moment later, my desk phone would ring, an internal call, the little screen showing 814, and I would answer the way I was trained to answer. And there would be no voice, only a sound underneath the silence, like a large room breathing, like wind moving through a space much bigger than a hotel room. And then, always very softly, before the line went dead, the sound of a receiver being set gently back into its cradle. Polite. That is the word I kept coming back to. Whatever it was polite. I did try, once, in my 3rd or 4th year, to learn what had happened in that room. A precise woman likes a source document. On a slow winter night, I went down to the basement where the hotel kept its old records and banker's boxes, decades of them. And I found the registration cards from the year the day manager had said 814 was taken out of service, and I found the card for 814. A woman had checked in, alone, for what the card listed as an indefinite stay, which even then was unusual. There was no checkout date written on the card. There was no forwarding address. There was only, in the corner, in a different hand, a small notation that the staff of that era must have understood and that I have thought about every night since. Do not rent. Occupied. Not out of service. Not under repair. Occupied. Someone, a long time ago, a night auditor like me perhaps, had decided that room had a guest in it and had quietly made sure the hotel never gave it to anyone else, and had passed that decision down through the software and the years until it reached me. I put the card back in the box. I understood I had been made part of an arrangement I had not agreed to, and that the kindest thing the people before me had done was simply not explain it. For years, I simply logged it. I am a precise woman. I logged everything. I have a drawer at home full of night audit notebooks, and if you flip through them, you will find, threaded through the balanced accounts, a small notation in my hand over and over, 3040. 814, no party on the line. I never told the guests. I never told the day staff. Beyond that first time, what would I have said? The numbers balanced. The hotel ran. A light came on in a room where no one was staying, and a polite silence called down to me in the dead middle of the night, and I answered it, because answering the phone was my job, and I have always done my job. The night it changed was a February night, with an ice storm outside. The kind of weather that empties a hotel and strands a few unlucky travelers in it. I had checked in a young couple near midnight, soaked and grateful, and put them on the 3rd floor. Otherwise, the building was as quiet as I had ever known it. At 3040 precisely, the light for 814 came on. The phone rang. I answered, and this time, under the breathing silence, there was a voice. A woman's voice, far away and calm, and it did not speak the way the living speak on a telephone. It asked me if I would be a dear and send someone up because the couple in her room would like extra towels. And then the line clicked, polite as ever, and went dead. I sat at that desk with the receiver in my hand, and I felt the whole cold weight of the building settle onto my shoulders. Because there was no couple in 814. There was no one in 814. And the only couple in my hotel that night was 3 floors down, and I had checked them in myself. I did not send anyone up because there was no one to send. I was the hotel, but I did something I had never done in 15 years. I left the desk. I took the old brass key, the physical key for 814, that hung on the board and that I had never once had reason to touch, and I rode the elevator to the 8th floor. And I walked down that long, dim hallway to the door with the tarnished numbers, and I stood outside it, and I listened. And I heard, on the other side of the door, 2 people, a man and a woman, murmuring to each other, the ordinary tired murmur of a couple settling in for the night. I heard the woman laugh softly at something. I heard bed springs. I heard, God help me, the sound of a shower running. I did not open the door. I want you to know that I stood there with the key in the lock, precise woman that I am, wanting more than anything to balance this one last figure, to know. And some older and wiser part of me, the part that has kept me alive and employed and sane for 61 years, took my hand off that key and turned me around and walked me back down the hall to the elevator. I rode down. I sat at my desk. At 7, I balanced the night to the penny, and I went home, and I slept. I worked there 6 more years after that. I never went up to the 8th floor again. The light still came on 2 or 3 nights a week, and the phone still rang, and I still answered because it was my job. But I never again heard the voice, and I never wanted to. I think I had gotten too close to something, and it had let me walk away. And both of us understood that the arrangement only worked if I stayed at my desk, and it stayed in its room, and the polite silence remained a silence. They have closed the Vandermeer now. They are going to gut it, they say, turn it into apartments. I think about the crew that will do the work. I think about the first electrician who goes up to the 8th floor to pull the old phone lines and finds room 814 and opens the door because he has no reason not to, because no one told him. because I am the only one who knew, and I have never told anyone until now. I hope the room is empty. I balanced that hotel to the penny for 15 years, every figure in its place. But 814 never did check out. And I have never been able to make that number come right, no matter how many times I run it in the dark. The smell is what I noticed first. Cold flowers and bleach. The exact smell of the 4th floor east wing at 2 in the morning. And if you have ever smelled it, you already know that something in this story is going to go wrong on the 4th floor. I clean a hospital at night. I have done it for 11 years since I got out of the service and found that I did not much care for daylight or for talking to people. And a hospital at 3 in the morning offers a man very little of either. It is honest work. I push my cart down the long waxed halls, and I empty the bins, and I mop the rooms they tell me are empty, and I keep to myself. And the nurses at their stations give me a nod, and I give one back. And that is the sum of my society most nights, and it suits me fine. I have seen things overseas that I do not talk about. I am not a man who spooks. I want that on the record before I tell you the rest, because I know how it sounds. The east wing of the 4th floor was closed for renovation for most of last year. Sealed off with plastic sheeting at the double doors, the power cut to that half of the hall, the room stripped and dark. My rounds did not take me back there. There was nothing to clean. But the main hall of the 4th floor, the part still in use, ran right up to those doors, and every night around 2 I would work my way down toward them, emptying rooms. And every night I would smell it before I got close. Cold flowers. Not the plastic and dust smell of a construction zone. Flowers, the funeral kind, coming through the seam and the plastic sheeting from the dead dark wing where nothing was growing and no one was allowed. I mentioned it once to one of the older nurses, a woman who had been there longer than me. I expected her to laugh. She didn't. She got a careful look on her face, and she told me that the east wing used to be the hospice floor, back before they built the new wing for that, and that a great many people had ended their lives back there over the years, quietly, in the dark hours. The way most people do. Most people die at night. Did you know that? The nurses do. There is an hour, somewhere between 3 and 4, when the body is at its lowest ebb, and if a person is going to slip away, that is most often when they choose. She told me the east wing had seen more of that hour than any floor in the building. And then she told me, not as a joke, to keep my cart to the west end after 2, and to not go through the plastic, no matter what I heard. I had not told her I'd been hearing anything. That is the detail I keep catching on. She said it like she already knew I would, because I had been hearing something. A call bell. You know the sound, the soft electronic chime a patient makes when they press the button by the bed for a nurse? In a working ward, it goes off constantly, and the nurses answer it, and it is the most ordinary sound in the building. But it was coming from the east wing, from behind the plastic, from rooms with no power, no beds, no call buttons, no patients. 2 in the morning, cold flowers, and then, faint, from the dark on the other side of the sheeting, a call bell chiming. Someone in there was asking for a nurse. Had been asking, I came to understand, for a very long time. I looked into it in my own quiet way, because a man who works alone at night has time to wonder. I asked around, careful, and one of the maintenance men who'd been there 30 years told me that back when the East Wing was hospice, they'd had a nurse on that floor who was known for a particular thing. She never let anyone die alone. If a patient had no family, or the family couldn't make it in time, she would sit with them through the low hour, holding a hand, so that no one went out of this world into an empty room. He said she'd worked nights for decades, and the people said she was still there some nights after she passed. The patients on that floor near the end would tell the staff a woman had sat with them, described her, a woman who matched no one on the roster. He said it like a nice story, the kind hospitals tell about themselves. I did not think it was nice. I thought about a call bell ringing in a dead wing, and I thought maybe the ringing wasn't the patient calling for a nurse. Maybe it was the nurse, still working, still answering, and the bell was her way of saying someone in here still needs sitting with. I did not sleep well that week. I did what the old nurse said mostly. I kept to the west end. But there was one night in the deep of winter when the chiming did not stop. It usually rang a few times and quit. This night it went on, patient and steady, a soul pressing a button that no longer connected to anything, calling for help that had stopped coming years ago. And I stood at my cart in that empty hall, and I listened to it, and something in me that 11 years of keeping to myself could not hold down simply broke. not fear. I told you I don't spook. It was the other thing. I have sat with dying men. I know what it is to be the only one there when someone is calling out, and I could not stand in that hall and let that bell ring into nothing. So I went to the plastic, and I pulled back the sheeting, and I stepped into the dark east wing with my flashlight, following the sound. The chiming led me down the black hall to the last room on the left, and when I put my light through the doorway, there was a bed in there. One bed, made up clean and white, and a wing had been stripped to the studs. And in the bed was the shape of a person under the blanket, small and still, the way the very sick lie. And on the pillow was a face turned toward the door, an old woman's face, waiting, and her eyes were open, and when my light touched her, she stopped pressing the call button, because I had come. Someone had finally come. And her mouth moved, and no sound came out, but I have read enough lips over enough bad nights to know she was saying thank you. I did not run. I owed her that much. I stood in the doorway, and I let her see that a person had heard her and come, and I held my light on her, not like she was a thing to be afraid of, but like she was a patient, because that is what she was. And after a moment her eyes closed, and the shape under the blanket seemed to ease, to settle, the way a body eases when the pain finally lets go. And then there was no bed, and no woman, only the stripped dark room, and the studs, and the smell of cold flowers fading, and my light shaking a little in my hand. They finished the renovation in the spring. The East Wing is offices now, billing and records bright and carpeted, people at desks in the daylight. The smell is gone. The chiming stopped the night I answered it, and it has never come back. I still work the floors. I still keep to myself. The nurses nod, and I nod back. I have thought a great deal about what happened in the 11 years of quiet nights since, and I have decided I do not believe I saw a ghost, not the way people mean it. I believe I saw a person who died alone, in the dark, in the low hour, pressing a button because she did not want to go without one other soul in the room. And I believe that some things do not stop calling until they are answered, and I believe I was put on that floor, on that shift, a man who does not spook and knows how to sit with the dying, so that one night I would hear a bell no one else could stand to, and go through the plastic and answer it. Most people die at night. I hope when it is my hour, somebody hears my bell. There is a man on our camera system who does not work here, who has never worked here, and who 3 of us watched walk the aisles of that warehouse for 6 nights before the 7th night. When Petey went to go say something to him and did not come back, and I need to tell it straight because the company says none of it happened. I'll tell you up front that I did not want this job and I was bad at it. I am not a brave person. I talk too much when I'm nervous, my wife will tell you. I explain things nobody asked about. And a distribution warehouse the size of 8 football fields, empty and dark from 11 at night, is a bad place for a man like me. But the money was real, and the crew was decent, and that counts for a lot. There were 4 of us on nights. Me, Petey, who was 19, and fearless and dumb in the good way. Marcus, who'd done it for years and had a stillness to him. And Dana, who ran the camera room and saw everything before the rest of us did. We patrolled in pairs and we watched the monitors, and mostly we ate snacks and told stories and waited for the sun. For a while it was fine. Dana saw him first. She called us into the camera room on a Monday, and she had a frame pause on one of the 40 little screens, aisle H7, and there was a man standing in it. Just standing, facing the shelves, wearing what looked like a warehouse vest like ours, but a little wrong, an old style, and a hard hat pulled low. We figured he was a straggler from the day crew, or a guy who'd wandered in off the loading dock. Marcus and I walked out to H7 to move him along. There was no one there. We walked the whole H block, every aisle, and it was empty. And when we got back to the camera room, Dana was pale because she'd watched us the entire time on the monitors. And she said the man had been standing 8 feet from us in H7 the whole time we were looking right through the spot where he stood. After that, we saw him every night. Always on the cameras, never in the flesh. He walked the aisle slow, the way a man walks when he's counting inventory, stopping at the shelves, tilting his head. He never looked at the cameras. He never hurried. Dana started keeping a log of where he appeared, and she showed me something on the 4th night that put a cold weight in my stomach. He was walking the aisles in order. H, then G, then F. He was working his way across the building, 1 block a night, toward the front, toward the camera room, toward us. Marcus stopped telling stories. Petey thought it was the best thing that had ever happened. I wanted to quit and I didn't, because I never do the thing I should, and I have to live with that. There was one more thing Dana noticed, and she almost didn't tell us, because it made the least sense of anything. When she went back through the old footage, the archive stuff the system keeps for 90 days, she found him there too. Not every night, but here and there, weeks back, months back, before any of us had ever seen him. Always the same slow walk, always working across the blocks in order, and then gone for a stretch, and then back, like the tide, like he'd done this before. Many times in that same building, and would do it again long after we were gone, and the 7 nights we thought we were living through were just our turn in a rotation that had no beginning we could find. Dana printed one of the old frames and held it next to a new one, and the man was identical, the same vest, the same tilt of the hard hat, down to the shadow. Whatever he was, he did not age, and he did not vary, and he was in no hurry because he had all the nights there would ever be. We told the day manager. Of course we told him. He watched 30 seconds of the footage, this man in the old vest walking H7, and something moved across his face, and then it shut. And he told us the cameras picked up glare and reflections all the time, and that we were spooking each other on a boring shift, and that if we kept making reports he'd have to wonder if the night crew was reliable. That's the phrase he used. Reliable. So we stopped reporting it, and we kept watching him come block by block, night by night, and we told ourselves the manager knew something we didn't, and I think now that he did, and that the thing he knew was. Leave it alone, and it takes its time. Bother it, and it doesn't. On the 7th night, the man was in B block, close to the front, close to us, and Petey, 19, and fearless and dumb in the good way, decided he was done being scared of a smudge on a lens. He grabbed a radio and he said he was going to walk up to the guy and ask him for ID, and he laughed, and Dana told him not to, and Marcus told him not to, and I said nothing, because I never do, and Petey went out onto the floor. We watched him on the monitors. We watched him walk into B block on camera 19. We watched him walk up the long aisle toward the man in the old vest, who was standing at the far end with his back to us, and we heard Petey on the radio, cheerful, saying, "Hey, excuse me, sir." And the man in the vest did not turn around. And then camera 19 went to static, just that one. The other 39 stayed clear. And on all of them, all at once, in every aisle of that enormous building, the man was standing. Not one man in one place. The same man in H and G and F and E, in every block at the same instant, facing the cameras now, all of him, dozens of him, hard hats tilted down. And Petey's radio was open, and there was no cheerful voice on it anymore. Just that sound of a big space breathing. And then camera 19 came back on, and the aisle was empty. No Petey, no man, an empty aisle under the lights. We did not go out there. God forgive us. The 3 of us stood in that camera room, and we did not go out onto the floor to look for him. Because every one of us knew, in the animal way you know things, that going out there was exactly what it wanted. That it had spent 7 nights walking toward us, slow and patient, to teach us it could be anywhere, everywhere, all at once. And that the only safe square foot in 8 football fields was the one we were standing on. We locked the camera room door. We waited for the sun. When the day crew came in at 6, we made them search, and there was no Petey, and his car was still in the lot, and his phone was on the break room table where he'd left it. The company handled it. That is the only way I can describe what they did. Petey was 19 and from out of state, and the story became that he'd walked off the job, and there was paperwork, and a detective came once and left. And the manager looked at me across his desk and asked me, gently, if I really wanted to put in a statement about a man on the cameras, given that I was still in my probationary period. Reliable. Dana quit that week. Marcus quit the week after. I stayed 2 more months because I am a coward and I needed the money, and I watched the monitors every night, and the man in the old vest never came back. He'd gotten what he came, block by block, across that building, to get, I suppose, and he was patient, and he could wait for the next one. I don't work there anymore. I drove past it last week, that huge windowless box off the interstate, lit up all night, trucks coming and going, and I thought about the 4 guys in there right now watching 40 little screens, and I almost stopped. I almost went in to warn them. But what would I say? There's a man on your cameras who doesn't work there. He walks the aisles in order. Don't go say anything to him. Don't be the one who's reliable. I kept driving. I always keep driving. Petey would have stopped.